Hello, friends. Today is May 4th, 2022, and we've been vacationing in Kitty Hawk and read about figs that Chester was growing here in Ocracoke. And there's some very, long stories or old stories about figs grown here since the 1700s, some heritage figs, and I'd like Chester to explain some, about the different places. You mentioned to me, and I said I couldn't remember all these, so let's do a video about, the house that was taken down then, and
there was a house used as a fort for the Revolutionary War on the island years ago, and it had 2 fig trees in the yard, and they'd been in it as long as the house, the family, had told me. And it was a pine fig and a little tiny sugar fig. The sugar figs is a little tiny fig, and it's real sweet. And the local people, when they preserved them, they didn't necessarily preserve the sugar fig because they were small and it was hard to get enough. The local people, they want a peck of figs, what they call a peck of figs, and usually a certain amount of like 5 pound bag of sugar. So they want the bigger figs, to fill the pot up quicker. And the little tiny sugar figs, the local people would eat like in cereal or in fresh dishes with figs on them, rather than cooking them. And then the pine fig, which is a great big fig, and the pine fig, if people pick it, some people say, well, this ain't that sweet or that. A lot of people don't realize that the fig's got to be good and right before it is sweet. I mean, sometimes you can't pick something that's half ripe and then complain about it and say it ain't right because it ain't, or it don't taste good because it ain't right. The pine fig, the last day or so, will even swell and start to have cracks in it. That's when it's starting being real sweet. And then birds know it's sweet too. That's when they're after it. And me and a mockingbird had an argument over fighting over my fig tree a couple of years ago, trying to pick the figs up because I was trying to get them level swell, And so those are some of the things that, and the pine fig we know has been on Ocracoke since the 1700s. I know that on Portsmouth Island we have the same history back and forth. And John Gray Blunt, which was a large landholder in the state, and John Wallace at Portsmouth, they had a lightering business for ships that came in. They would take stuff off the ships and the ballast stone, throw the ballast stone off, and take on other cargo from eastern North Carolina, from the farms, and then they take it off and sell it. Well, John Ray Blunt writes John Wallace and says, I won't be able to get to Portsmouth until fig season. So there was enough fig trees for them to understand when he was talking about it, getting there. And then on the island here, there's what we call Springer's Point, which was the high site where Blackbeard he had a house at one time here. But the Springer's Point, nobody's lived in Springer's Point in over 100 years. And there's a fig tree still there, still living. It's not that big because it grows and will die and come back from the root and that kind. But it didn't come up from seed. It's been planted there, and it planted there way over 100 years ago. So there's 16 different varieties on the island. Not all of them are, some of them are what I refer to as dingbatter figs because they're the ones that come in later. They've been bought in, and they're not the same as they're not being on as long as some of the main ones that have been years ago.
So dingbatter, and we talked about this because they're dingbats for even bringing them in, or what?
Well, some of the new people that bought houses have bought in figs, and they bought in fig trees and planted them, and that's how some of them got here. And some of the older families, when I was young, the big pine fig, that was a major fig on this island. But now, because of so much changing on the island, we're losing it. There's not as much of it now, because so many people have moved in here and got rid of the fig trees. And what they're doing, they got rid of the fig trees. It may need to be tended to, and it may need to be tended to, and they may be not tending to it right, and they may decide to put a drain field or a parking lot where that fig tree's at and get rid of it. And then Then later they decide they want one, they go to the garden center and get one, and some of the varieties that we've had for several hundred years they're rare on the island now. They're not as near as many.
Yeah, they're losing their heritage here from.
Yeah, and so I've tried to push. That's one of the things I've tried to push. I started rooting some, I don't know, good many years ago, and I had rooted some, and I thought, well, I'll carry them to the preservation society, and if they won't sell them, and see if they get any money for them, if they can. If they give me any, I don't care, And next thing I knew, they had sold them out, and they said we need more. So the next year I did went right away and rooted a bunch more to try to start again, and the rest is history. Is every year there was a couple during Dorian we didn't were able to root any because of the hurricane, but and some of the people that came to help during the Hurricane Dorian, after the hurricane, the tide will shock the leaves, and the leaves will fall off, but they'll come right back. But the people didn't know that, and they cut my fig trees down and hauled them away. And so I had to let them get the roots get back.
You mentioned too, coming about the White House or
two of my fig trees are two of the varieties that have been on Ocracoke since the 1700s are in the greenhouses to the White House. The superintendent of the National Memorial Park in Washington, D.C., his name was Bob Vogel, and he was a very good friend of mine. And at one time, he was superintendent at Cape Lookout National Seashore, which is Portsmouth Island. And we had homecoming one year, and I said, Bob, can I give 2 fig trees to go in the greenhouses to the White House? I said, you know about all that. He said, Chester, he said, I'll tend to it. He came that evening. I wouldn't even let nobody, when I decided I was going to do it, I wouldn't let nobody even touch the whole line of 2 lines of fig trees until I decided what woman was going to go to the White House. and so I wouldn't even let nobody do that. So that's what we done. He came over and picked them out and carried them. He said, I said, Bob, I said, there's no bomb or nothing. He said, Chester, they'll check. And so we just had homecoming, and he said, Chester, I checked, they're doing good. Which in the White House, they got all kinds of people to knows about tending to this and tending to that. We have some people that's moved in here or people that buys fig trees. I have to tell them everything in the world because they don't know how to tend to it.
Yeah. Well, we had a lady come here just a little bit ago that wanted a fig tree. We're almost done here.
You all look right.
We'll come back.
And she wasn't too sure she was going to care for her, talk about neglecting, and we, joked with her a little bit. I played along with her something. We adopted a puppy last year there and said that we need to check her out some and have her sign some adoption papers to make sure she doesn't neglect them. And your assistant out back there, he says that if it's not doing well, you got to bring it back. I appreciate your time and appreciate the devotion you had to preserving these historical heritage figs.
Well, this is my community. People, my family's lived on Ocracoke since the 1600s, and so in the process of 2 of my family members were part of my big crew. They've been here on Ocracoke a long time, so I'm proud of my heritage, And when it comes to the fig trees, my grandparents and all that had taken, and they tell me about fig trees and different things like that, and I didn't realize it until years and years later. But I have almost like a photographic memory, and so if it's important to me, then I won't forget it. I may have to make somebody think I forget it, but if it's really important, I won't forget it, and therefore that's sort of how I got started over the fig trees, And I'm glad I have now because we keep from losing that heritage that has made Ocracoke famous. The fig, we have a fig cake. There's a fig cake that is cooked for Ocracoke. It's an Ocracoke recipe. One of the ladies on the island took a recipe. She changed the recipes in it. She changed the recipes in the recipe and put fig preserves in it. And the fig cake is absolutely wonderful. The only thing better about that fig cake is when they mix, this is terrible to tell somebody, but when they make the batter up, a batter's wonderful spoon with a roll. One of my ministers, he used to, Chester used to come over. He said, "We'll fix some cake up, and they put it in a bowl. We'd eat it like pudding." And it was absolutely delicious.
And if you got some recipes, you have a book here, Chester Lynn's book, Figments of Ocracoke.
And it's written in Ocracoke brogue. It's the original language. So there's some words in there that we use that a lot of people are not familiar with. And because our families have been isolated on Ocracoke for so long. And then there's some recipes about cooking with figs. Some recipes that when I was growing up, I remember different people that cooked, you know. My grandmother used to candy them, and all I remember is that there was a bowl in the refrigerator, and it would have always something in it, whether it was coconut or whether it was chocolate or whatever, and the figs we would get out of the jar were whole, and we would roll them in that whatever's in that bowl for candy, because you didn't go to the store to get candy like you do now, you know. And so that's one of the things I remember with Granddaddy, me and my sister, we would do that, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, again, thank you for sharing, Chester.